What I'd like to say to you all is that the people here are incredibly unique, and I think that my experience is both, in a very lucky setting with having a lot of opportunities, and then having moved over to Elizabethtown with my mother at a young age, who had divorced my dad but wanted to allow me to stay close to the property, and living on welfare and was facing a lot of challenges. It showed me the other side of the coin. And so this is my ability to relate to the people of NY-21. We have vastly different experiences, but we're all really focused on what I call kitchen table issues. And these are the things we need to speak to. We need to strengthen communities, and we need to appeal to those things that touch all of us. And this is the kind of campaign that we can run, and we can effectively draw the district together and provide a real opportunity for the future and a real shot at replacing East Stefanik. Thank you.
Like everybody is saying, the turnout is unbelievable, and I think it's a great sign for things to come for 2018. But we have to focus on 2017 first, and I'm just really encouraged. Every day, every event I go to, more and more people. It's a really wonderful thing. So, to introduce myself and tell you who I am. I'm an environmental attorney. I'm a town attorney, and I'm a third-generation native of Saratoga County. And I think a lot about how I got to this point running, how my family got to where they are, and how I got here today. My grandfather, he came to the United States, settled in Saratoga County, and he bought a sheep farm and livestock auction in the region. It was a hard life, but it was a time when there was a strong community of farmers. And we talk a lot in my family about what the region used to be like back then and how it's changed over time. And I grew up like that as well. I grew up on about 40 or 50 acres, working outside, playing outside, and that shaped me in large way to who I am today. Having that experience, being kind of an outdoors guy growing up, I went into the sciences. I went into the environmental sciences and biology, and I did forestry, and I was always enamored with understanding our natural landscape. But I reached this point where I wanted to have broader, affect change on policy, because just studying it wasn't doing it for me, just talking about it. And I was fortunate to get a job in Congress for Congressman Michael McMahon, where I was a legislative aide, and I worked on agricultural policy, and environmental policy, and energy policy. And that was it was a really wonderful experience, especially in 2009. We got to work on cap and trade legislation. We got to work on the Affordable Care Act, on financial regulatory reform. It was incredibly dynamic. And I continued that experience as I became an attorney. And I've been fortunate to have had experience in every branch of government and in every level of government. I've worked in local government, currently as a town attorney for several towns. I've worked in state government in the Attorney General's office in the Environmental Protection Bureau, and I've worked in federal government. I clerked in the U.S. Attorney's office. I worked at the Securities and Exchange Commission on financial regulation, and I worked as a legislative aide in Congress on those issues I just told you about. And I think that experience is important, because the interplay between the different branches of government and the different levels of government, to understand that dynamic is important, particularly today, because to get things done down in D.C. nowadays, it's a grueling process. And through all those experiences, I've noticed one thing, and I have a chip on my shoulder about it. I've had it my whole life, but it just gets bigger and bigger. And I just feel like for my whole life, I've seen our region really get the short end of the stick in so many ways. Rural New York doesn't get the voice it deserves in the legislative process, and I don't know what our vision is for our future. I see a lack of vision. Where are we going? Growing up here, I had dozens and dozens of good friends, and now that I'm in my mid-30s, I got a couple. And it wasn't because they didn't love upstate New York. They did. But it was really because they couldn't find a job here, or they were in debt, so they had to go somewhere else and find a job in the field they were in. That's really troubling to me, because we're being deprived of one of our greatest resources, which is our next generation of business owners, community leaders, and I love this place so much, and I just want somebody to step up with some vision for where we're going, because I want to see my kids be able to live here and look at this region with the same adoration that I hold it. Thank you.
the opportunity to be here tonight. And thank you, everybody else, for the opportunity to sit next to you tonight. I'm Tedra Cobb. I live in St. Lawrence County. I'm running for Congress because this is my home. I have lived in St. Lawrence County for 30 years. I went to college there, and I stayed. I chose to raise my children there. I chose to serve the community, doing HIV and AIDS education for many years. And then I ran a community health agency and ran for St. Lawrence County legislator and served for 8 years, 2 terms, as a county legislator. As we read the news this week about Hurricane Harvey, and we think about Korea, North Korea, and what's happening, and we're talking about what's happening with neo-Nazis in the United States, I think all of us feel that it is time to stand up for our values here and in Congress. That's why I'm running. To take the experience that I have in terms of problem solving and collaboration with others that are not only Democrats, are Republicans and independents, our farmers, our business owners, our social service and human service workers, my experience as a healthcare worker. That's why I decided to run. I want to give you one story and then I'll pass it on. When I was doing healthcare work, I was running an agency for people who were uninsured. And we paid for people to have different kinds of healthcare, preventative care. And we were paying for colonoscopies. Nobody wants a colonoscopy. I just turned 50. I don't want a colonoscopy. But we were paying for colonoscopies. And I want to tell you that one of the doctors called me after that colonoscopy and said, I just want you to know that the person that we just did that free screening for, who was uninsured, had 15 polyps. I see you sign. That is a death sentence. That is the reason why I'm running and using my experience in healthcare. Everyone deserves portable and affordable healthcare. No one deserves to die of diabetes, colorectal cancer, cervical cancer, or other preventable diseases that we know with treatment can be cured. So that's a little bit of an introduction for me. I want you to know.
Incredibly important. Citizens acting with the representatives and elected officials and candidates. But one of the problems that we experience right now is this. No offense to any of the other people running, but we put our politicians on a pedestal. We stand them up there where they can talk down to us instead of us talking up to them, which is what a representative is supposed to be. As a matter of fact, one of our founders, John Adams, said, I fear the day that we become a two-party system, answering only to the party leaders. Now, people, pundits, news agencies would lead you to believe that we here tonight are enemies. We're not. We're people out trying to represent other good people. And while I am probably diametrically opposed to a lot of the people on this dais here, the fact is we're not enemies. 7, 10 people sitting around. Nobody likes the same food. Nobody likes the same drink. Nobody likes the same life. Yet we all are friends and family. And we get along. And we work together. And we live together. my first foray into politics was sitting in a room with 30 guys all running to be the IOC representative. All 30 of them spoke a different language. Most of them were drunk, which is quite similar to our government today. And I really got a taste for what goes on. Now, for the last 23 years, I've been a real estate broker. I specialize in farms and rural properties. But my life, my love, my passion is on the farmer. And like many of you with small businesses, with homes, camps, cottages, I used to walk out every day and I would say, my God, look at what I own. Now I walk out each day and I say, what are they going to legislate, regulate, or tax away from me today? Now I'm a conservative. I believe in less government. I believe in people and businesses keeping more of what they earn. I believe, 2 minutes? Wow, I'm doing good. I believe that more people working and paying less into the system provides government with more money to better take care of the people that truly need it. I believe that we can save this district. I know we not only have the obstacle of Washington, D.C., we also have the obstacle of Albany. But I believe that with good plans and good work and people working together, we can bring industry back to this area. I believe that we can have cars instead of in the parking lots instead of weeds. And I believe now more than ever.
Instead of having people with hands like these, we have more people with hands like these.
The reason why this night is so important is because you, the voters, have the opportunity to break the government cycle of a government with a 9% approval rating successfully scoring 95% re-election. That's what's wrong with the system, and that's what we're all here to fix. Thank you.
1965, I moved here with my parents, and my father was an immigrant from Korea. He had fought in the war. He had taken care of, he was in one of those MASH units. He was a surgeon. He wanted to start his life here. He was a surgeon, both at the Glens Falls Hospital and also in the old Corinth Hospital. Some of you old timers might remember Corinth had a hospital in that day and age. He took care of people. That was his life. I can remember him coming home days where he was a little quiet, and it was because one of his patients wasn't doing so well. And it was more than just a way to make a living. It was a way for him to give back. And so 40 years later, he's retired. He has Alzheimer's. He needs round-the-clock care. He lived a good life. He knows his grandchildren, so he has some blessings. But when the health care issue came up, and Elise Stefanik voted for a bill that her own boss said was mean, that was a prayer. My father. You can plan, we all can plan for these things that can happen to you, but it's not going to be perfect. And we need each other. And when she decided not to talk to her constituents about her vote, not to even defend it, she disqualified herself from being our congressman. So I'm here tonight because I have to. My father can't speak out. So what principles am I going to run on? I think, it's important to understand what motivates a person. The principles that I'm going to run on, that I'll focus my campaign, and if I'm lucky enough to be your congressperson, they'll be the ones that I abide by. Freedom to live. That's the health care bill, folks. If you don't have health care, you are not free. And our Constitution says that we are guaranteed certain freedoms. So this is a basic, fundamental right we're talking about. The second is freedom to work for a decent, livable wage. Right now, let's connect Wall Street with what's happening on Main Street. Right now, what's happening on Wall Street is record profits. And yet, there are fights to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. $15 an hour! Why? There's something wrong with that. Freedom to learn. If you can't learn, if we don't have an adequate education, well, we don't have a future. And part of that is also figuring out how to make it affordable. We are seeing, in my office, one of the things I do is work with consumers and students. I am seeing student after student with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. Grandparents who co-guarantee the student loans. This hurts all of us, folks, because someday you're going to want to sell your house to some of those people that are coming out of school, and they can't afford it because they got $100,000 worth of student loan debt. We have to have freedom to learn. We've got to fix that system. Finally, we need freedom to dream. We need to be able to dream and look to our future. When my father came here, he thought, and I think he probably was right, that he didn't have a future in his country. He made a future here. And we can't stop that. We can't just turn that off. It's simply wrong. So I'm happy to be here. I thank you for your attention. And those are the principles that will guide my campaign. Thank you.
Fight for us in Washington, D.C. We're missing opportunities. So, healthcare, I want portable and affordable healthcare, and a coalition of people who are working together, who are problem solving together, who are putting aside differences and fixing problems. We need an EPA that is not beholden to corporations. We need scientists on the Science Advisory Board. These are the things that a congressperson has the power to do that is being squandered right now by our current congresswoman. The other thing is the power to listen. It is absolutely amazing to me that everywhere I go that people ask, will you hold a town hall? That seems to me a ridiculous question. The question should be, how often will you be here? 10 times? 20 times? This is our home. I am facing you with my back to Washington. Elise Stefanik is facing Washington with her back to us. That is the issue.
The fact is, and I respect everybody here, and everybody's got to have lofty goals. You've got to swing for the fence. That's the only way we're going to fix this. The main job of a representative is to work for the people of the district. If a small business is having a problem with a permit or something like that, it's your job, it's your office to go and say, hi, permit app, do it now. This is what the job, you are supposed to be the offensive lineman for the citizens of the district. And there's so many people out there putting up so many pieces of legislation to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to draft that. While it's a great goal, chances are you're not going to make some earth-shattering piece of legislation. It's your job to look at the legislation, read the legislation, and refine the legislation. Now, with these giant bills that they have going out there, what I would like to do is I would like to do what I call the Social Security number bill reading. Put the bills out on the internet the moment they come out, and instead of everybody trying to read the entire bill and just going brain dead, you go to the page that's the last 2 or 3 digits of your Social Security number. You read that page. You become versed in that page. Then you report back to my office and say, this is what I see, this is what I don't like, this is what I do like. This is the way that we can engage people and have people involved in it and have people get more involved and understand the legislation that's out there. Now, as a farmer, I just went through having to send a tractor back to the company. It was the second tractor that I bought. $60,000. My tractor cost $5,000 more than my first farm. The tractor fell apart in a year. That was the second tractor. And the earth-shattering thing was, the dealer says to me, oh, the last tractor was made in Mexico. We got a much better one. It's made in Italy. Really? We need to start bringing this stuff back here. We need to start looking at why things aren't produced in this country and what it's going to take to start producing things again so that people like me, the American farmer, the less than 2% of the people in the country that feed the entire country and an important part, the vast majority of the world, are able to do so with good quality equipment. These are all things that need to be done, but engaging the public, being part of the district, being here, talking to everybody, no monikers, no pretense. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has something to say. Everybody should be able to have some input into some bill, and that's what
or Medicare for All. When I was on the city council as Commissioner of Public Safety in Saratoga Springs in 2008, there was an initiative to go to each of the local councils and debate this issue. And it actually came up for a vote. I did vote for actually health care for all. Because here's one of the things that's not often discussed, is from my perspective as essentially the leader of a department of about 150 public safety agents, we would have saved a heck of a lot of money to the local taxpayers. Why? Because those people who were on the current healthcare system would have been shifted off. For employers, this is a huge cost, which as local taxpayers you're paying. So it does shift it, and it does lessen the burden. We saw that, and that's one of the reasons that way back when, before a lot of people were even talking about this, I supported it. Second initiative that I would advocate is, most of you have bought a house in your life, correct? In 2008, I started seeing people walking in my office who were getting foreclosed on, who weren't getting their bills credited, were telling me they sent their check in and nobody was crediting their account, they were behind on their mortgages, all sorts of things happen. Well, the first time you hear it, you're thinking, what's going on here? About the 10th time, you realize there's something wrong here. There's something really wrong. And as I got into this issue, which even today I still deal with clients who in effect can't get their mortgage right. It's been passed around. Most of you probably have seen that. It's Bank of America. The next day it's another. The accounts aren't passed along correctly. Well, believe it or not, we've got a law that's supposed to fix this. It's called the Truth in Lending Act. But here's the problem with the Truth in Lending Act. So then I get clients saying, well, can't we sue? Can't we do something? This is wrong. They're taking my house. I made these payments. Well, here's the problem with Truth in Lending Act. Remember when you signed all those papers the day that you closed down? Well, you had 3 days to decide that there was a violation of the Truth in Lending Act. That's not a Truth in Lending Act that keeps banks responsible. Here's my question. If you got to pay your mortgage for 30 years, why isn't there a law that makes sure that the big banks have to tell you the truth for 30 years? Well, that's the kind of law that needs to come. But you know what? You won't see that from our current congressperson, and I'll tell you why. We're seeing the same thing in student loans. Student loans right now there's a lawsuit against Navient. You might not know who Navient is, but they used to be Sally Mae. Just they changed their name. Well, Navient is right now being sued by the federal government for failure to help students who are drowning in debt, to give them the options for lowering their payments. Not only that, they're being sued also because they have gouged them on their interest. So they're not telling them about all these programs. Some of them are Obama-era programs that could lower their payments. And they're also increasing their interest rates. That's Navient. Guess who? Go to the FEC webpage. Guess who's taking money from Navient? So who's going to listen to you? Is it going to be? Do you really believe that your congressperson who's taking donations from Navient is going to listen to you when it comes to these critical issues? That's the problem we've got. So one of the other pledges, I'm not going to be taking special interest money. These entities, these banks, need to definitely be regulated. And so that is also a legislation that I'll propose. The final thing, we have a civil rights bill civil rights law that was effectively passed in 1964. There have been modifications to it on the edges, but there is a whole host of people that are not protected except by the interpretations of the EEOC and the Supreme Court. Well, you know where the Supreme Court's going to the last point. We need a new civil rights. We need a new civil rights bill that protects LGBTQ. We need to deal with these issues. We need to give everyone that kind of protection in employment, in housing. Because right now, folks, New York's a little bit different because our state law's a little bit better. But around the country, you can discriminate. And that surprises people, that America's like that. But unfortunately, our laws aren't as good as they should be. Thank you.